All right, let's talk about the High Court and its decision here. Nicholas, the concept is that indefinite detention is not acceptable, the suggestion being that people who can't be deported somewhere else at some point have to be released here. But if one of them's a pedophile, how's that okay?
Yeah, so look, I do think that community safety needs to be paramount in these matters. So if there is a safety concern for the Australian people in having a person let out, then I think the law clearly needs to ensure that that person can be retained. I also feel I need to say, and I know you'll both agree with me because you're lovers of freedom and the rights of man and women and humankind, that the notion of indefinite detention is something that shouldn't be allowed under our constitution. You know, we don't like it when we see Julian Assange apparently locked up forever without any proper recourse, and equally it should apply here in our own country when somebody is detained forever and ever simply because the Australian government can't ascertain that that person has a state that they can be sent back to.
Yeah, but
so, you know, there's 124 people in detention.
Because they decided to enter the country illegally, they were deemed not to be refugees, meaning they rolled the dice, and why should they win?
Well, we have an obligation to humanity, to human beings who come to this country, and if somebody can't be sent back somewhere, if they are stateless, then Australia has an obligation as a country which respects human rights to allow that person to be free. Now, again, I want to stress that if there's a community safety issue, that trumps everything. But if a person can be safely allowed into the Australian community and they don't have another country that they can go back to, I think they should be allowed into the Australian community.
But Corey, we've already seen this government's form, right? Which was, again, the reason not to jump in a boat or not to not return on a flight is because if it doesn't work out for you, you're not going to be able to stay here forever. But of course, everyone who came here via the 50,000 boats, even the ones who weren't framed to be refugees, they were put on this sort of, this mouse wheel of not really end up getting citizenship. This government turns around and gives them citizenship, which of course leads to family reunion, meaning it worked, right? It worked. How is that not going to be the same in this scenario, including for, the convicted pedophile?
Yeah, well, here's the point. Nicholas, at least we agree that people who are a community concern shouldn't be in the community, and a pedo is a community concern. I don't want him living in my community, and I'm sure no other Australian does either. But this is a much bigger problem, Paul. Firstly, let's not conflate people who come here in aeroplanes because they've provided identification. Maybe they've lied about their status, but they've got documents, they've got visas and travel documents to come here, so we know who they are. The people who come here by boat, notorious country shoppers, they are fleeing not persecution because they go to 2 or 3 countries on the way, and they're coming here for economic benefits, and we have to put a stop to that. I can't believe that the High Court has overturned a previous decision of the High Court after 20-odd years, and it's now incumbent upon Parliament to tighten up the legislation to make it comply with the court's findings and the Australian Constitution. And the best way we can do it, I think we should withdraw fully from the Refugee Convention. It's just an outdated, outmoded thing. It was rorted mercilessly, and it continues to be rorted under the left. Well, why not? Why shouldn't we withdraw from it, Nicholas? Because it was designed for a different time, and now we have people who are just scamming the system, not fleeing persecution, not because they're scared, but because they want welfare. And we've got 5 million people on income support in this country. We don't need any more of them. We've got 2.5 million public servants spending $214 billion, as Paul pointed out. And you reckon we can afford more nonsense like this? This country is going down the gurgler at a rate of knots, and it's because of bleeding hearts who say, no, what's happened in the rest of the world will not happen here. Well, it is, and it's destroying us.
Nicholas?
Well, I'm sorry, Corey. I mean, that would be an absolute disgrace if Australia walked away from the UN Charter on Human Rights and Refugees. I mean, we hold our head high in this world for our record in accepting refugees in this country, starting with Jewish people fleeing the Holocaust, from others fleeing other atrocities in Europe, to the Vietnamese in the 1970s, the Bosnians and Serbians in more recent times. Like the idea that we would walk away from something like that goes to the absolute core of the good nation that we are. And for you to even be suggesting that is really irresponsible.
Have a look at the good nation.
Corey.
Have a look at the good nation we are by the people who are chanting death to Jews around the Opera House. Gas the Jews. Have a look at the people who are raping 10-year-old kids on the street. And now apparently they're allowed to stay in this country. That is the disgrace, mate. And the fact that you and your ilk, the left, have been defending this garbage for decades, and some on the right as well, has led us to this parlous position. Someone's got to speak truth to this garbage, and if that means dropping out of these crappy leftist international organisations, we've got to do it.
What about what I was saying
Corey,
before?
this is not a left-right thing. That's been a thing of bipartisan support for since the Second World War. Corey. So it's not left or right. It's been a bipartisan pillar of foreign policy and our approach to human rights.
There are